Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. This is a year-end interview, and I've been waiting to do this for a while because I'm with Nathan Ogloff from British Columbia, live from British Columbia. But what's special about this is Nathan and I are comrades in arms. Nathan is embarking on a self-published journey. He's wrote a fascinating book. I haven't read it. It's coming out in February, the Sapien Empire, and we're going to talk all about that, about his journey. But when I kind of discovered Nathan and he discovered me, that bond, because I don't mind promoting. I just published, there's a Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit, that's self-published. The Sapien Empire, self-published. So Nathan and I are brothers in this journey of self-publishing, of our words meaning so much to us, our journeys, because we're on that same journey. So this interview becomes very poignant and very meaningful for me, and it's also the last one I'll do this year because we're a couple of days away from New Year's, so that brings us up chronologically to the right time and place in the universe. So I think let's formally introduce Nathan, and how about a little bit of a bio, and then we're going to jump in to this journey. Everything about the Sapien Empire. It's great artwork. Really is. So Nathan, take it away and we'll go from there.
Well, as Calvin said, I'm Nathan Ogloff. I'm a self-published author, and a bio about me. Just a little bio about my creative endeavor, pursuit of creativity is, I think it all just started in 4th or 5th grade when I thought I was going to be an architect or an engineer. And then I was introduced to the Star Wars trilogy, and that was just a complete shift. I said, after that, I was like, I'm gonna do that. And I didn't quite know which medium to pursue, and I tried video games and just video games, not film, for a while, and it didn't pan out. And then in 2013, I had committed to this idea I had and thought naively it would be done in 2 years. But after 9 years, and after being split into 2, then 4, then 8 books in the series, I finally completed the first novel in the series, and tried to find a literary agent for a year, got rejected 40 or 50 times. In June and July this year, I went the self-publishing route as someone convinced me to do. And it's been a journey with ups and downs, and a lot of it's been quite the gauntlet, but I'm happy where I am. I have received positive feedback from a lot of people that have either read it or just heard excerpts. And yeah, everyone, that's just a little brief rundown of my creative journey over this very long but well worth it endeavor.
Okay. You talked about the agent thing. I published another book, 17, 18 years ago, self-published, and the word agent, and tough word. It's a tough journey with agents. Anyway, you're part of your in reading your bio and chatting. You had an interesting college career because you studied computer science and also film. So how did these ingredients and also, I guess, part of that journey, you thought about video game development. So how do these ingredients how did they help you with Sapien Empire?
Well, so I would say the computer science degree, it helps in not the book itself as so much as in me promoting myself, because I have my website. I programmed it from scratch. It's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is useful. But I would say in terms of the actual story, the Sapien Empire, the computer science degree actually influenced one of the characters that comes up in the second novel, which I've actually finished writing the first draft for that. And so, and then the reason that's important is because in that character's world and his culture, I don't want to spoil too much, but computer technology does play a significant role in their belief structure. So film, I think film really just helped because it showed me how there's really no. So when I first started pursuing that, I remember my first year of university, the way they would talk about story and how everything works, there was something I wasn't getting, because I guess it just had a very scientific approach to it. Like there's all these parts and they work together and almost like a machine. And then I realized, well, it's not quite like that. It's very abstract and fluid and open to interpretation, and there's no formula for it. A lot of it's look and feel. And so it helped shifting my mindset towards that, because if I didn't have that and I was to be thrust into this with very established authors, I would just be completely lost in the dark. I would have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. So I was just also just university in general just changes your perspective of the world and really broadens your horizon. So for that, I'm very thankful.
Okay. You've also done work in construction.
Mhm.
Such a diversity to your background. Did this help in any way, give you some perspectives on things?
Yeah, well, first of all, it gave me the confidence to do this. And I mean, if you want an industry that's going to give you confidence, other than the military, well, construction will do it. It gave me perspective on uh, people's lives, and I guess you can say sort of privilege and culture, because I won't. I mean, I'm not going to go to political beliefs too much, but you do meet a lot of First Nations people in construction, so you do see that, I guess you can say, hierarchy of society and in play, and you do meet people that have been down on their luck, and you get to talk to them, and you also understand what intelligence means, because there tends to be this whole notion in society that university educated people are these high class intelligent people, and construction workers are these sort of lower blue collar people, and it's a lot more nuanced and complicated than that. I mean, you will meet people in construction that, like, it's obvious that person doesn't have the best of intelligence, but then, and for example, a safety officer I once worked with was one of the brightest people I ever knew, and that guy really knew his stuff. And so you understand that there isn't really one sort of intelligence in the world in general. People have strengths and weaknesses in other areas. So you might meet a university professor who really knowledgeable in their field, but then there's like really basic things that they just can't do. And it's like, I don't understand. And then you'll meet people in construction that, you know, good at building something, but then maybe, you know, there's areas that they don't excel in that the university professor does for real. So they've gained a lot of respect for me, the world of construction. I am forever grateful for that. And yeah, just I guess getting me again broadens my horizon in a very different way. I think the experience is very practical, and I will say that after working construction for as long as I did, I'll never complain about the weather ever again, because it may be crappy outside, but at least I don't have to work in it.
Okay, interesting. From author to an author, I'm always fascinated about the writing process. What is your writing process for the Sapien Empire? And I think you touched on it. Where did this idea come from?
Okay, so the idea itself is a synthesis of two ideas. So this first idea is me just understanding what post-apocalyptic is. So it's yes, it's the collapse of our society. But if you look back in history, there have been essentially many post-apocalyptic eras. So, for example, the Middle Ages is post-apocalyptic, the perspective of the Romans, and then there is a Mayan Dark Age that's post-apocalyptic from the perspective of pre-classical Mayan civilization, so on and so forth. And so you look at the ebb and tides of history, something always comes back. And so I said to myself, well, why don't I do post-apocalyptic? But that's just the beginning. And then I focus more on something's coming back. And then to figure out what's coming back, this is where the second idea comes in, and it's my perceived failure of the UN. So, World War II happens, everyone's recovering. They say, hey, why don't we make this organization to do things peacefully? And then unfortunately, it just doesn't happen all the time. I mean, I think the most obvious example currently is Russia's war with the Ukraine, yet Russia is one of the 5 permanent members of the UN. So, and I think just I was a little bit more naive when I first started writing this novel. So I just had a moment of just wanting something to happen. So I had said, like, you look at a lot of what happens in the world. Part of you just says, I wish there was just some entity going around and fixing it when other more institutions have failed. And so I said to myself, well, hold on, wait a minute. What if, as they're rebuilding civilization, they say, let's not repeat those mistakes. Let's do it right this time. If we're going to make a better world, that's what better means. And then throughout the series, you find out why that notion is easier said than done. Now, in terms of actual process, I found out very early on I am a plotter, not a pantser. I have to have a game plan of where I'm going. I actually planned out just roughly the second novel before I finished the first draft. And I usually, you shouldn't write for more than a 4-hour stretch. Even I think John Grisham said, if you write for more than 4 hours, your brain's just going to be mush. I agree. And so it's usually around 6 in the evening I write. I do what's called the Pomodoro technique, which is a 25-minute writing, 5 minutes off. You repeat that 4 times, take a half-hour break, and then you do the 2-hour stretch again. And I would say the only time I really pants is within a scene. It's just dialogue comes out of nowhere, and I say I'll use that. I'll figure out how to make it flow. And the beginning, when I'm first writing a scene, it depends on how well I know the scene, but it's usually like I'm just on my keyboard and it's type, 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 stare out the window, backspace, nothing's happening. And then I pick up speeds over time, and usually by the end, when I really have an idea of what's going on, and I just need to tighten everything up, it's type, 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 and then I'm done. That's now the process I've settled into, but it wasn't always like that when I was writing the first novel. The first novel is very, I guess you can say, experimental, and me finding myself and finding my voice. So, but everything else I just said, yes, that is my process.
This the series is pretty much thought out. I mean, you know exactly this is a series, and you pretty much know exactly what's going to happen. You've kind of mapped all that out.
Well, okay, so I haven't mapped out scene by scene the
Right.
whole book series,
Right.
but I do have a rough idea of what's going to happen when. So the third and fourth novels, I know a little bit more, and then there's novels 5 through 8 where I have a broad idea of where he's going to go and what factions are going to be in, but I haven't mapped out 5 through 8 yet. I've just, if anything, I just have a list of title names that I put on my Instagram, and yeah, that's what it is so far. But I've always noticed that.
But you have the structure and the idea.
Yeah, I will say I do know how I want it to end.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's funny. It's not funny. We're indie authors, and this is my second venture into being an indie author. There's something nice about it. and there's something real about it. And I don't know if we discussed this, but even if Simon and Schuster agreed to publish you and me, they'd still say, you're not John Grisham, who you just mentioned. You're not John Grisham, and you're not Stephen King. Therefore, we have no budget for you. Go promote it yourself. We'll publish it for you. So there's not much difference. I don't know if you feel it or you sense it. There ain't much difference between being an indie self-published or getting published by Simon and Schuster, because the work that we have to do, the journey that we have to take, you and me, is a daunting, never-ending journey. But you like being you like this title of self-published indie author?
Yeah, it's I mean, like I just put on my Instagram a couple of days ago. I said I would prefer Weaver of Dreams, but like, yeah, the title is okay. I mean, it is who I am. And in terms of actual self-publishing, yeah, you're right. I mean, even if you sign up with a company, they still want you to do some of the marketing yourself. The difference is that they take more of a cut when you're published through them, whereas when you're indie, you are just the only people that take a cut is Amazon, which is understandable because they need to maintain their database. Yeah, it's been a really nice journey. I've gotten into a rhythm and flow with it. The only thing I think I'm still lacking in is I would like to just know that I'm making a decent living off of it, but can't really do much about that other than what I'm doing right now. And after this is launched, we'll 2024 is going to be an interesting year. We'll see how it all pans out, but I'm really looking forward to it. And as I've said to a lot of people, I said, even a bad day doing this is still better than a good day anywhere else.
It's very special. And again, that was the particulates of energy that drew me to you, because we're on that same path. And we should and will stay in touch and share. If I can come up with any magical bullets, magical flashlights, beams, to the universe, I'm so happy to share, because we're in that special place. I just want to go off topic a second, because I like doing this. Just completely off topic. I forewarned you.
Okay.
So here's the question. You don't even have to answer it, but it's kind of a cute question. So here it goes. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend the day with.
Mark Twain. I love his wit. I love a lot of the quotes he said. If anything, I would just like him to see how he reacts to my novel. He might make some jokes about it. He might think like people, like he might make commentaries on the actions and say, oh, but people won't do this because of blah 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 blah, which I wouldn't mind, because when people say that, it just forces me to dive deeper into this. And yeah, I just like this casual nature. He just seemed very down to earth, from everything I've read about him. And so yeah, he would be it's either him or George Carlin, just because George Carlin was also a cynic, and again, just see how he would have reacted to me and what I'm pursuing.
Interesting you said George Carlin, because I just interviewed Ronnie Marmo, who's a comedian. He's a playwright, and he wrote a play. I'm not a comedian. I'm Lenny Bruce, about Lenny Bruce, who was the kind of the godfather of all modern comedy. And George Carlin took so much of. We discussed this on air last week. George Carlin took so much got so much from Lenny Bruce, that freedom of speech type deal. And so we talked about George Carlin, and I looked him up and I did some studying on George Carlin. So interesting you said George Carlin. He did one bit I thought was one of the funniest bits ever. He does the hippy dippy weatherman. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he's doing a weather report. I think he did it on Johnny Carson a long time ago. He's doing a weather report. There's a thunderstorm coming in to Jersey, New York. On the same time, he also said there's also they detected a fleet of Russian ICBMs coming in, with nuclear bombs. So George Carlin said, "Don't worry about the thunderstorms." Something really, really brilliant. It was just so funny. Anyway, back to stuff. I like this question because I do a lot of thinking and pondering about climate change. Since your novel is post-apocalyptic, are you concerned about climate change?
Yes, there are certain realities of the world that I don't like, but I can't deny. I've also heard the term like it should be called climate changed with the past tense because it's been altered. I am concerned about it. But also to dive more into this, I'm also concerned about some of the language that's used around it. And so, for example, the idea of saving the planet, we need to save the planet. Well, the planet's recovered from much worse than what we're throwing at it. It's our modern day civilization that's in jeopardy. And then with that being said, I have so I mean, again, this is I know I'm going to be going a bit off topic, but so like Greta Thunberg, she keeps talking about how she's angry at politicians for not doing anything. And so, good on her for having the courage to do that. But also, politicians don't just do this because they want to be assholes towards the environment. It's because there's um demographic demand for certain services, and people can't just hold the brakes on it because people will get upset and up in arms. And so there are some solutions I have seen. I actually watched Oliver Stone's Nuclear Now documentary, and he's talking about how there's basically been a lot of misconceptions around it and how like it is clean. Yes, it's dangerous, but you know what? Flying's dangerous. Cooking's dangerous. There's risk to it, but we do it. And just amazing things. And also one of the things he talked about was you could make synthetic cleaner burning fuels with nuclear power, but you just need like lots of plants because it requires a lot of energy. Another thing that I don't see a lot of people talking about is we have a housing issue, crisis around the world, essentially, but they don't talk about something called CLT, which is cross-laminated timber, and it's very durable and strong, and it doesn't burn, it'll just char, but it takes a lot of effort to make it go up in flames. And you can make 30-story high rises with that. It's that durable and strong.
Wow. Wow.
And one of the things I've also heard about it is you can, because it's wood, you can prefabricate it in factories. And so while you're waiting on plots of land to get building permits from the city, you can already manufacture the parts and then put it up there. And as somebody who worked in construction, when you're essentially making a floor, so right now it's when you make a floor, it's concrete, and then to make the walls, it's like perimeter glazing wall with steel studs around it. Whereas with cross-laminated timber, you're making all of that in the factory right away. So everything after that is just the drywall, paint, cabinets, tile, etc. And so also bear in mind you're taking carbon out of the earth atmosphere by the sustainable forests with cross-laminated timber, B, the synthetic fuels which are cleaner burning for jets and shipping tankers, and then just whatever carbon you're taking out by not having coal plants. And so that's just some of the solutions I advocate for, and I feel very strongly about. So yeah, climate change is a concern for me, and then there's also resource consumption of the earth, but we can always go into that topic at a later time or now.
We can. Yeah, great answer. Fascinating. I never heard about this coarse laminated timber, and I've done my studying on solutions, and I have a little climate group, and we try to come up with solutions. I know in Iceland, in Iceland, they built some kind of like a smokestack, and they sucked carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. They sucked it out, and then they mixed it with cement, because the carbon dioxide mixed with cement gives it a greater strength, whatever. But now that was a fascinating process. The problem is a tremendous amount of energy and resources to suck it out. And the end result is that they've sucked out the equivalent of 300 or 400 cars. That whole project, they're sucking out the carbon dioxide emitted from 300 or 400 cars, and we have billions of cars. So the practicality of that, I don't know. I don't know, and I worry also about the oceans and plastics, and the fact that they we eat fish that eat plastics, because we're dumping all kinds of plastics in the ocean. So they just found traces of plastic in the mother's breast milk. Not good. And they also found traces of plastic in cardiac tissue. Not good. So anyway, that's another subject we can delve into at a later date. You're a film guy. I always like to ask this. Some of your favorite movies, actors?
I don't know if I have favorite actors. Just I tend to just focus more on the story and what's happening rather
Okay.
than the actor. But a Star Wars trilogy, favorite movies, Back to the Future, a lot of what you'd call the blockbusters. More recently, I'm very excited for Dune Part 2 coming out next March. Also Mad Max, which post-apocalyptic, it's quintessential post-apocalyptic.
Yes.
The Matrix trilogy, Blade, from way back when. Then you go into comedies, there's anything Monty Python is great. The Farrelly brothers back in their day was awesome. More recently, there's Bridesmaids, and I've also noticed that as I've gotten older, I've gotten less like I do consume sci-fi definitely, but I've also done I've gotten more into political dramas, and maybe in terms of superhero movies, I like the Man of Steel movie. I liked the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. That was great. And then okay, so in terms of so there's more recent and political dramas. I would say Frost Nixon I liked Selma, about the march across the bridge in Alabama in the 1960s. What are some other political dramas? I just saw The Sound of Freedom a couple of days ago. That was a really good film, and it's a very heavy, deep subject. And I was watching it with my brother and mom, and they're like, maybe we shouldn't watch this. And I said, no, we're gonna watch this because it's gonna make us better people, essentially. So yeah, that's just a little slice of the films I'm into.
Okay. Interesting. Really interesting. And I asked that question because my next question, everything, not a day goes by when there isn't 16 news stories about AI. And AI is somewhat apocalyptical. But I don't know how many people realize that in 2001, the movie by Stanley Kubrick, which came out in the 60s, is pure AI. Because you have and that's I don't know if you ever saw that. It's a wonderful movie, brilliant, to make you think, all of that. And I can't see an obelisk and not think about that movie. But the point being, and I always like to talk about this, because AI is so much in the news, and actually I'm involved and I interview somebody also from British Columbia, an AI specialist. We talk about that. But bottom line, this movie came out in it was Arthur Clarke wrote it a long time ago. But he conceived of, here you have a spaceship. Again, it's in the 60s. a spaceship, a couple of space explorers, and you have the computer on the spaceship that takes over. How? So this is AI. What we're going and what we're thinking about and contemplating today was conceived way back then. You have a computer that takes over the spaceship in conflict with the astronauts. And so, how do you feel about AI?
Well, none of it surprises me. We knew this was coming. Like you mentioned, the obelisk. Well, also when I see what AI can do, I always hear the Terminator theme in my head. And I watched this YouTuber called the Critical Drinker, and he's talking about the latest Mission Impossible movie, and he talks about how he says Tom Cruise's character is aware of the danger because he's seeing The Matrix, Terminator, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Blade Runner, Metropolis, like all those. So we knew this was coming. It's no surprise. AI, it has its advantages. I'm not. So one of the concerns I see a lot of people, especially in my field, is AI generated novels, which there's a lot of people that have taken stances of we're not going to have them, we're going to have human only. But one of the areas where AI is lacking right now is a lot of people don't necessarily want to read the book. They want to have a relationship with the author. And it's really hard to do that because like I can put out a video on social media showing people like I'm doing this right now. People are getting a sense of who I am. There's book signings where you can meet me, for example. And it's you can't really see people right now saying like, wow, have you read Chat GPT's latest album? It's so great. And have you seen it talk in interviews? They're so charming. Like it doesn't really happen. There's just no sense of it. And so that's one area where we still we're over AI. But I mentioned this or something like this at a author convention I went to this year, and the guy who was giving the presentation was like, well, AI is not that yet. And so I'm thinking 20 years down the line, and there's the ultimate question of, well, what do we do when AI can do every single thing? And I mean everything we can do, but better. Like that's the ultimate question that we should ask. And so I think about our evolution and how, and then I deal with this in the series, and it's there's this concept of we've evolved to be a certain way, but there's a certain point where that starts to gate us from going further in society. And so the reason societies collapse is because there's just this gap between like what the society requires and what we're kind of evolved to be. And so when that gap gets too great, it just collapses and gets shrunk, and it's that stretching and shrinking. And so I get into this idea of us evolving beyond these instincts. And so can AI provide a solution to that? Is that the answer, just integrating us with man and machine, which it sounds a little unnatural, but I mean, if you look at cities, technically they're unnatural because they're not like naturally occurring elements. Like the environment's made by us for us. And so, and I also, and this is further down the line, I think about space travel and how our biological bodies just really aren't designed for it. And even if we have domes and spacesuits, there's going to still be problems with especially microgravity. And so you think about like, well, just maybe the solution is just abandoning our bodies and having a part of us that lives in, the internet, which in a sense, we're all kind of connected to it and attached to it all the time, especially with our phones on Wi-Fi or carrier signal data. And so there's that, and that occasionally you just have, and I'm speaking very abstractly here because these are broad ideas I have for upcoming series. And it's having this idea that your soul essentially is mostly in this interconnected network, but occasionally you can just put it back into an actual, maybe not a biological suit, but like some sort of like vessel that is you walk around in it, but it's also a lot more durable to the wide variety of alien planets and environments and space especially, that we'll see out there. So yeah, there's a lot to be said to it. There's a lot of unknowns, but that's human history. Just something comes around, people don't know what the consequences of it are going to be, and it really just changes the game.
Interesting. As we wind down, do you have certain life events in your life that has influenced the character here?
Yes. So I would say overall, so I would say the character in general is, when I was in high school, I'm a very smart guy, as maybe people have perceived during this interview. But I was also very lazy, so I wasn't doing these like advanced courses in university, or not university, but high school. I was just doing the regular courses, whereas with like regular kids, and so I was a smart guy, maybe sometimes in classes with these really rowdy kids that, I mean, that they weren't going to go to university. And then so there's just this idea of this smart guy who's a little timid, and he's in this environment with like really sort of rough and rowdy people. And then the same situation happened when I was in construction. Again, university educated, but here I am in this environment around probably what these kids were like 10 years later, but I was a different person. I perceived things a lot differently, but it was the same idea of having someone who's maybe in an environment they're not really designed to be in, but in order to cope and survive, they find a way to adapt and really push their comfort zone. And so that is definitely what happens with the main character in my novel. As I've said, it's some of the pitch blurbs that I tried to send to agencies. I said, just imagine Elon Musk having to make machines for the Hells Angels. So that's the situation. So yes, that is definitely a life event that has, or just in general, that was what was going on in the back of my head when I did come up with the main character for the Stumble.
Okay. Real fast, people can pre-order this on Amazon, right?
Yep, they can pre-order it on Amazon, and I think also Apple Books, Google
Okay.
Play, and Kobo.
Okay.
Yep, but you guys can pre-order it right now if you want.
Okay, and I have the address here as I'm looking, so I'll have that address in my promo piece, that people can order this. It's due out officially in February, right?
Mhm.
Okay. The last question, it's not a political question because I don't do politics, but uh 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 how we were talking about this before we went on air, political beliefs, but everybody, every one of us here on Earth wants something better.
Mhm.
So it's not a political thing, and you want something better. Your
Mhm.
character wants something better. We all want our definition, I guess, better is different.
Mhm.
And that's also part of that theme here in the Sapien Empire. So the last question, if I'm making sense, and spitting this out, is you, me, we all want a better place here on Earth.
Mhm.
And you do.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a view of what would be better?
Uh, all I can really say is, I mean, I'm not an expert in politics, and especially the intricate politics of many countries around the world, but the one thing I do advocate for, which I think makes sense, is just trying to understand other people a lot better. And maybe they'll have beliefs that run contrary to what you believe, that maybe trigger something inside of you, but everybody thinks the way they do for a reason. And so just sort of stepping back and just calming your emotions a bit and just shelving them for a while as you try to speak to somebody. You can find that we have a lot more in common with each other than there are differences. And so, I mean, I'm guilty of it myself in the past, where getting mad at someone who maybe sees things differently. But as I've gotten older, I've just sort of said, well, let's just build a world of understanding. So just taking a moment, trying to understand and sit down and not argue and get each other's faces, because with social media nowadays, you can get connected to so many people so easily. And so, yeah, again, just sitting down and just trying to understand people and where they're coming from.
Great way to finish our little time together.
Mhm.
And this has been great. And you're a fascinating, interesting guy. And Nathan, I can't begin to tell you I wish you such good things with Sapien Empire, your journey. We're friends. So I'm officially inviting you to come back
Mhm.
here
Thank you.
in any shape, way, form. You can materialize however you want to materialize. We can put together, the imagination of what we can do, self-published authors, just having a roundtable. It's endless what we can do. So my sense of loyalty, I'm inviting you to come back. Again, I thank you for your passion. I thank you. I thank the universe that connected us, because I think us indie self-published authors are in a special club, and we need the support of each other in our journeys. So I'm officially welcoming you to come back.